right, YouTube, we're live. We're here with my co-host, Mr. Justin Harris, traveling, but he was not going to miss this one because we have a special guest tonight, someone Justin's followed, referred people to for training programs, Josh Bryant. So, Josh, thanks so much for joining us today. We may have to mute Justin on and off here a little bit if the
that's fine.
If the ride gets loud. You can feel free to unmute yourself anytime, Justin. It's just for the viewers out there. But thanks again for joining us. Really
I'm
appreciate
excited about this. I've followed Justin for I think we're at University of Michigan or somewhere back there when you're lifting real heavy with Steve Kuklo.
Oh yeah, was it that long ago? Yeah, that was.
Yeah, and then sent up a number of clients his way because I was real happy with the how he communicated and then obviously the results most importantly. So
yeah, we kind of worked really well together. I've always really liked your training programs. You're my first go-to recommendation, 100%. Yeah, I feel like, because I don't know, we've never even really talked, so it's kind of an interesting partnership that worked out, because it seemed like you'd be referring people and I'd be referring people, and it just worked. So
for sure.
Well, good deal. And I think we usually, Josh, really start off with how people got started. I think that really interests a lot of people. I just did a little digging, and it looks like you kind of started around 16 in the sport. And just can you walk a little bit about, just walk us through how you got started and where you are today and all that fun stuff.
It started so basically I started lifting when I was about 5 years old, and not correctly, but just doing stuff. And I'd sneak in the YMCA when my dad played racquetball and just find my way to the weights and that kind of thing. About 12 years old, I got serious, and it was like a little more regimented of a program. And I started the YMCA. My dad gave me some advice, and the YMCA gave you a little card of what to do, and I kept tweaking it. And once I quit doing their crap and started using my own brain at that age, I was actually able to make a lot better gains. So went from up 12 to 14, made pretty good gains. Then my dad's good friend named Steve Hall was a powerlifter, and I was boxing, doing track, football, that stuff. Got me hooked up to Steve, and he kind of taught me a lot more about, just on bench pressing, I wasn't working my triceps enough and things like that, And from there, football was my main sport at that point. But I still did my first bench press contest at 15.
Nice.
1996. And so kind of the rest was history. And it also was interesting is that point at 16 years old, I got a job working at a hardcore gym. And I was like,
this episode is brought to you by First Detachment. First Detachment is an expert formulated supplement company founded by renowned coach Justin Harris. We've combined science with real-world experience in each product. We are battle-tested. Are you? Find your battle today at firstdetachment.com.
I was able to manage it at nights after school and after practice and on weekends. So I picked up a lot of experience, and, before I knew it, I was training it wasn't I started a general fitness population that, lady wanted to lose 5 pounds. I was training like bouncers at strip clubs and writing all their programs.
Yeah.
And, it just kind of got thrown to the wolves right away. So either, you had to swim or die, and I chose to swim and been at it ever since. I haven't this isn't I haven't done something else. I wasn't in construction over here not doing this. This is what I do and what I've always done, what I plan to continue to do.
I have a question on that. I really like your routines, and they're very unique. I mean, they're very well thought out, logical, but they are unique. And so I always wondered, if you kind of developed your style or strategy from the books you read, or if it was a first principles approach of what worked for you and understanding, human physiology and kind of just developing it from that, or something else.
Well, initially the programs are based a lot off of what the Steve Hall had taught me. So a lot of that was initially more powerlifting, and it was pretty basic powerlifting, but very sound. And from there, Steve was always about going heavy all the time. his joke was, his doing over 5 reps or eating fast was his cardio. And so like it was like always heavy all the time. Like your off season after a meet is you go to like a triple where you had like 1 rep in the tank kind of thing. It was never like, so I got a lot from that, learned the importance of going heavy, of the right assistance exercises. He was really smart with because he had a bodybuilding background prior to that. And then, so that was really good. So I took that. So then with the football training, I did like, a little bit after, I was in college, I worked at UCLA, picked up some of that stuff there and like just kind of meshed different things. I worked, I had a lot of time to read books for a kid, because I was working at the gym. So Dr. Fred Hatfield's business partner, Dr. Salaria, helped me out a lot before I'd even met Fred. So I'd read those books in there, and then I'd not only get to read that stuff, but I actually get to meet some of the people I'd read about and stuff. Like not Lee Haney, Olympia, or Dorian Yates, but like the next level down when coming to the gym. So I saw what we did with Steve Powerlifting. I saw the bodybuilders come in there, and I'm like, okay, if I can make my chest grow by say doing like cable flies, for example, like as a drop set. Oh, this is better than just like the 3 sets of 6 we do. So I can kind of like pick up in that. So kind of piggyback the best I learned from each person. And okay, well, these guys were the ex-cons that came in with the strip club guys. They showed me some stuff before I started working with them of like mechanical advantage drop sets and things that were born out of necessity. You're in a prison yard and there's a set of dumbbells. You can't do a drop set. You're going to take that incline steep and go a little bit lower each time you fail because that's all you got. So initially, it was definitely more of a learning from people and that kind of thing versus like physiology. And then I also, learned from different people. And then I definitely did it all in the trenches first. I experimented things on myself. I had a bunch of guinea pigs at the gym that were, it was weird. I don't want to sound like cocky, but like a 16, 17-year-old, they used to joke that I had a cult following there. I could get people to do anything. So it was good to, I didn't abuse that power. So it wasn't like, I was doing anything bad, just had people that were willing to experiment the routines. And that provided me with a lot of data of what worked and that kind of thing. And then from there, I finally started, Dr. Salaria told me like, you're doing all this good stuff. Why don't you get certified by ISSA? And with him and Fred. So I got certified by ISSA, then eventually studied it in school and all that stuff. But I definitely think, if it came down to a contest, I'd drop out of 6th grade and have these experiences rather than go to school.
Yeah,
Luckily,
sure.
Did you read that? I can never remember the name of his big book, but he had that one book. It was like thick as a phone book, and I remember like training physiology book. I think I was about 15 or 16, and I don't even remember if I finished it, but I remember that really being my first eye opener into what there was beyond just the leader magazines and stuff.
Yeah, you talking about Fred's book? Cut out for a second.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm in the middle of Michigan.
Yeah, so it probably was
Fred.
Bodybuilding, a scientific approach. That's a really thick book, a good training book. And then he had Power Scientific Approach as well, but Bodybuilding, those more Powerlifter was kind of like the main one that kind of put that on the map. That was like the first of its kind.
And no, I was looking through. So you, when you went to college, you were training with Gary Frank, right? Is that
right?
Yeah. And what school was that at? And can you talk
LSU.
a little about that experience?
I just went down for a semester to train with him. So
nice.
Just took classes so my parents wouldn't ride my ass.
Were there any kind of training variations you noticed you picked up from that time?
Yeah. So the thing you picked up from Gary Frank was a couple good things. And a lot of these things don't sound like, you say you get 1 or 2 things from a person, but sometimes they can be, life-changing in this kind of sport. So with Gary, the main thing I picked up from him was the importance of speed. That was very important. And even though I'd, read Fred Hatfield stuff, other people talk about being explosive. I mean, that's all he talked about. That was the first thing I picked up from him. The second thing was the importance of a lot of upper back, work. He thought not very highly, it seemed, of bodybuilding. However, if you watch him train his back, it was weird. It was like he'd go in a different zone. It was like he'd wear a tank top and like we'd be doing all these like machines and kind of more pump and posing kind of stuff on the back day. That was the only like designated sort of like bodybuilding day we did, so that was really showed me the importance of that. So I picked up the back training from him, and then the speed.
Yeah, was there certain, like when you say speed, was it similar to what a lot of people think of with like speed drills or using accessories with it? Bands, chains, stuff like that, or was it timing? Or
no, he was not into bands or chains at all. It was more like I guess the better way to put it would be the intention of speed. So like for example, let's just say you deadlift 700. If you're gonna do 650 for a double, it probably ain't gonna be that fast. It's maybe near your limit. He would just be yelling speed, 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 speed. And the thing with that is like, it was more of an intention of like how to execute the lift rather than necessarily like, like say West Side or somebody could have like actual bar speed of like, it needs to go, this many meters per second, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like an intent.
Got it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. That's a lot of,
just thinking further, you can't walk over to a dumbbell rack. I always tell people, and pick up a 25-pound dumbbell, do it slowly, then snatch it off. It's gonna feel a lot lighter when you snatch it off. So it's not just, mass times acceleration. It's just like getting your central nervous system on fire where everything's gonna feel a little bit lighter.
Yeah. No, I definitely want to unpack that as we kind of get through some of this stuff, because that's some exciting stuff. Yeah, just a little bit more, just for those who maybe don't know too, you're the youngest to bench press 600 pounds raw. How old were you when you did that? And
I was 22, and actually somebody I work with beat that since, but
okay.
Yep.
And then now was the strongest man in America in 2005, that was through powerlifting?
That was through Atlantis. They were doing it's funny because I'm actually doing a seminar for that guy this weekend in Massachusetts. He's not running the meets anymore, but what it was pretty interesting, is he wanted to bring, I guess, all the disciplines of strength, for lack of a better term, together and kind of find out, sort of like the Arnold's done, but make it like a true test where there was no, like skill is not going to limit you. Okay. For example, like they could have like a, axle clean and press, but there's a lot of people that are really big that might not be able to rack that bar or anything. This was like, it was a, you start the contest off with a trap bar deadlift, like low handles. And strangely enough, they're fat handles. They didn't advertise them as fat, but they weren't like fat enough to be like fat handles, but they were way fatter than a normal diameter of a bar. And then you went from there to a normal bench press, like a powerlifting one, where you deposit and all that stuff. An overhead press off the rack. And you could get it, you can get it up however you want. Like if you were able to like do a jerk or whatever, you could do that. A pull up. So they always were trying to figure out ways not to be, so people wouldn't favor one person. A pull up over your body weight. So if you weigh 500 pounds,
right,
you can only do your body weight, you get 0. If you weigh 180 pounds and do 300 over, you get 300. So then there was a grip, you had to do like a grip test where you picked up a fat dumbbell they loaded. But it always like, so for example, just give the example, if you're too heavy, you're not going to do as well on the pull-up. You're going to lose some points. You're just adding it for a total. You're going to lose something there. You're too heavy, and if you're somebody with really short limbs and small hands, you're not going to do anything on that deadlift. That's going to hurt you there.
Right.
Like if you're a guy that's like just good at deadlifting, some of those kind of really good deadlifters, they kind of just like hinge their body and just can kind of lock it out if it comes up and they're not moving it very far. That it's not going to cut it on a trap bar. So it's kind of like a way to kind of keep anybody honest that could have like an extreme advantage.
Got it. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a really interesting way to do it. I mean, I did a few like strongman events in my early 30s, and it was a little different, but it was a lot like the endurance, grip strength, ability to, as you mentioned, like, there's so many different modalities of movement you had to do that it was really challenging.
So this was different because this guy wanted to find out who he thought was the strongest, because with like normal strongman, like I've done that a lot too. That's going to be more like you said, your endurance, your explosiveness, because this, you don't have to be explosive. I mean, if you can bench press, 750 pounds and it moves at a snail's pace or
Right,
whatever,
you still do it.
Doesn't matter. Where strongman, a lot like the throwing events and stuff, you can't throw a 40-pound bag slow to
Yeah.
very high. So strongman is like the most versatile test of like overall. This was like more literally he wanted to find out who the strongest guy was. And back then they weren't putting money up really at many meets, but this dude put up for the time was a lot of money, like $2,500 for first place, when back then if you got a free hotel room, you're over the moon kind of thing.
Right. No, that's awesome. Yeah. And was there anything different that you approached to that training than say your standard, powerlifting, layout?
There absolutely was, because I hadn't had success in business a lot yet, so I needed the money, and especially to get up there. I mean, because like not only need the money, but also a few $100s for a plane ticket back then. The hotel's about the same, and like so I don't want to be like $800, $1,000 in the hole just to for fun. If I want to have fun, I just do it locally. So it absolutely was. I looked at this as like, training. I'm a pragmatist, so you can do whatever to get the job done. So like in my mind, let's just say, for example, I could trap bar deadlift 2,000 pounds and all my other lifts went down, but that went up so much, it's fine with me. I didn't really care. I just had no idea to get. So I knew where I looked where I had the most room for growth. Overhead press and trap bar deadlift. The pull-ups, so even though I was heavy back then, over 300 pounds, I'd always done pull-ups. So that was, I could get up more weight because I'd start training singles and stuff, but it wasn't like I'm some dude that never does pull-ups that, can't do when I'm going to get 100 pounds of the contest. So, and then the overhead press had a lot of room to improve because I'd done that a little bit seated. But I hadn't really done it standing up ever in my life. It just wasn't something I did. So I got a lot of improvement there. I mean, I got at the contest, I got up 445 because again, I was playing this to win it, not to so in training, I went up to 455, got it randomly at some private high school where my friend had a connection there. We would lift over there and it was crappy racks and everything else. Felt so good. I tried 495. That didn't go. But 455, I was positive no matter, even though it was like the fourth event in the contest, third event, I know I could have got that there because the 445 was pretty easy. I don't know what I could have topped out at, but I was prepared to minimally go 455 if needed, but I was really far ahead of everybody. So I think it's stupid. And then the trap bar deadlift, I wasn't, I should be good at that, but I didn't really do it since high school. So the first time I did it, it felt really awkward and weak. But again, that one was like, I just went to 840 at that contest because that's what I needed. I was prepared to go a lot more, but I wasn't going to go 900 and some pounds and, not be tired the rest of the day. It was a 5-event contest.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of people in it. So I had to be ready to go and not be strategic, where a lot of people, are thinking more with their egos or whatever. To me, it's a chess match.
No, it's interesting you say that because I remember I was in my early 20s and did a powerlifting meet and had a bunch of guys that were they're at a gym in Michigan called Weight Station, and they used to, I guess, go against some of the West Side guys and stuff. And anyways, the coach was like, "How you want to do this?" The guy who was coaching me, I was like, "You just pick the weights and tell me." And sure enough, still to this day, I wanted to get a certain bench number for ego reason, but that made sure I won. I was a juniors and a novice. That was the total I needed to do to win. He's like, "Well, do you want to win or do you want to do this?" I'm like, "No, I'll win." That's because I was using a bench shirt at the time that was like someone lent it to me. I mean, like I said, I had no clue what I was doing. So I couldn't even touch my chest on the first one. So I screwed that up. And so, so it all worked out though, to having a good coach guide me.
It's interesting you say that because you really got to be strategic as strongman, because a lot so how they do it, this one, they're going by totals. So it does matter what you actually lift. You can't because if it would have been just winning each event, it would have been pretty good because I could have sandbagged a lot at the beginning and saved it up for overhead press and that kind of stuff. where strongman, like we're talking about with stones and all that stuff like you've done, you generally go for your placing. So if it's 700 pounds on a deadlift and you're last and no one's got it more than twice, if you do it more than 3 times, unless it's the last event of the day and you're trying to have fun, you're really playing with fire. You should do it's weird. You do each one to win, especially on the fatiguing ones. It's not like, throwing a bag over the bar, you obviously go as high as you can.
Yeah.
But like, it's deadlift for reps or, that kind of thing, or like it's some kind of max out or for strength or endurance, you can't go beyond what you have to win if you're like the top dog.
Yeah. Yeah, I know a lot of it's interesting. It's a lot of this. I think a lot more goes into it than maybe people who haven't experienced it. Cause like you said,
Sure.
the nutrition through it, the training, for me, when I was doing not powerlifting, but later when I was doing strongman, it was the maintenance work that I was not doing enough of. And so I was getting pretty banged up, and that's I didn't progress as much as some of the other guys I trained with. And I think, they were a little further ahead of me, but it was still a fun time, but just realizing the importance of maintenance when you're lifting stones and trying to lift a car or something like that. It's like, you got to take care of your body. So what, curious of that, like, cause you've also worked a lot with, from what I gather, bodybuilders as well, or helping people bring up like certain weak points and things. Are there any scenarios that made it stick out in your mind of how that transition, went over? Like when did people start to really seek you out as a coach, and what are some of maybe the noticeable, changes you kind of brought them?
Okay, so like more like, powerlifting or any kind of strength thing or military, like tactical athlete kind of stuff. A lot of times just off, reputation, and it's not necessarily at a certain point.
Sure.
With bodybuilding, it's usually somebody that needs a major change. Like, dude, I've been like doing regular bodybuilding and I'm stuck. Where do we go from here? It's usually like, I don't want to say a last resort, but more like they need something different. Where it's like in the other ones, it's more of like, hey, this guy can enhance my performance, by working with him. So like I'm gonna do it. And like we're bodybuilding, it's like, dude, my chest has been, stuck for 2 years. What do we do, kind of thing?
Yeah. And is there any consistent approaches you find with like someone in bodybuilding, a weak point that you train usually, or something that sticks out when you
Well, a lot of it comes down to like a generalization is where they're at. So for example, if somebody who's like like say like, not somebody known to train hard and heavy, like more, pump and posing, always training, like, the more stereotypical, like bodybuilding kind of training.
Sure.
They're going to do really good with a power cycle,
Mm.
more so than whereas like somebody that always trains like power bodybuilding and heavy and more like powerlifting, they're going to do pretty good on like a regular bodybuilding routine. So because a lot of it comes down for bodybuilding is disrupting homeostasis. And what's interesting about bodybuilding is how advanced people are with nutrition, supplements, all that kind of stuff. They are not as advanced with training or as open-minded. Like you could say, oh, hey, there's this, shaved cow balls, like, are going to put on top of your rice, and you're going to, do, oh yeah, I'll try it. Where they say, hey, what if we threw on some chains on the triceps? Like, what? Those are for powerlifters. It's like, they'll be like so far ahead of everything on everything else, but like training a lot of times they're not. I don't know. It's weird with bodybuilding too, because a lot of people are so. That's why I think Justin and I hit it off. Is he seemed like balanced, like he does understand the importance of a strength base, but he realizes it's not just, hey, just do a powerlifting peaking style, eat like a bodybuilder, you're ready for the stage. It's like, it's not one way or the other. And I think, he viewed it as I do. It's not myopic. It's not black and white. There's give, there's take, is what the person needs. So like I'll give you a practical example here. Johnny Jackson was training for Raw Unity. He was going to train for it. So he had seen a lot of the younger guys and kids. I say kids, like, 15 to 20-year-olds that I've been doing work with, and they were getting really good results at Metroflex. So he hit me up And he's like, why don't you, he's like, why don't you train me for this raw unity? I said, okay. And he hadn't done any powerlifting in like 3 or 4 years. So he'd only been training, it's still power bodybuilding, but not how he was. It was never heavy or any, for him at least, like compared to normal people would be, but like no heavy squats, no heavy deadlift type of stuff. All the benching is, dumbbells, no more than, 140, 150. When for him, that's not a ton. And so what we did is I said, okay, I'll train you for this. So what do you want to compete at? 242. I said, okay. Weighs in at like 230 or something. We start. And he's like, I don't care about the scale. He's like, I want to be focused on powerlifting. I'm not going to like obsess on this. I'll be 242 at the meet because I'm not eating crazy or anything. Long story short, we showed them the meet. Everybody keeps coming, like, the guy is so big. I've never seen anything like it. Like he says he weighs 242. And every time I ask him to weigh, he says, don't worry about it. We'll just show up to the meet and lift what you can, kind of thing. Weighing at 264. And that's the year 2012, right? Where he did, that's the year where people thought he was done. And he came back and got his best placing at the Olympia ever. Because I think it like had disrupted what his routine were like. Had he been just training like this and all of a sudden, for a couple of years, I think you have to alternate. I think the best bodybuilders are going to have some sort of powerlifter in them.
Yeah.
Powerlifters have some sort of bodybuilding training, and they have to. It just becomes a thing of how much, like for bodybuilding, there's going to be a diminishing returns. Like Ronnie Coleman squatted 800 for a double. Had he got that up to 1,000 for his double, would his thighs have been 5 inches bigger? I doubt it. But if you're squatting 300 and you get to 500, it's almost like a 1-for-1 trade. So there is a point of diminishing returns, and I think most bodybuilders aren't close to that. Where the flip side is a lot of powerlifters, bench squat, deadlift, they don't do anything to build it. So if they have any kind of problem, any kind of compensatory movement patterns or anything, they're just going to make it worse by doing the same thing over and over instead of focusing on the weaknesses, the structural balance, and all that stuff.
Yeah, I noticed that, some of the, the top coaches or the top gyms with powerlifting really stressing on, the accessory work and some of the things that did. We had, was it David Goggins on recently, and he was talking about how he trained with Ronnie, and when they squatted or did leg press or like, some more powerlifting type stuff, it was like a powerlifting set. But then when we did accessory work, it was crazy volume. He said it was insane. Yeah. But he said he really felt like that kind of helped him with, building up his squat to as high as it was, and how he also thinks they messed with him a little bit because they knew he could, take him in the deep water on the squat. So they would do a lot of the accessory stuff first, then go to squat and try to burn him out. So I just thought that was pretty funny that listening to that story.
Ronnie says he thinks the difference in training is like the rep range is more than the actual like exercises and things. Mm-hmm. So he that's basically what he advocates is like, it's not so much changing what you're doing. It's more like, the rest intervals, the reps, things like the sets, the volume, not like, okay, you squat and body, powerlifting and bodybuilding, you hack squats kind of thing. He's pretty much very similar exercises.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious too let's say, and again, this is more for the audience. Obviously I know what you do is so specialized with everybody. If you were to look at, we'll take both, but like a bodybuilder or powerlifter, would you say it's roughly like a quarter of their programming a year should be in the other? Roughly, is there a certain like time frame that you think?
Yeah, so I would say probably in the other. I'd go even a little higher, more like 40% or so.
Okay,
40%, yeah. Because things like a lot of times, if you try to pick something, what you do is go 8 weeks to the other, 12 weeks, then kind of like flip back and forth. And you also got to, so like the more advanced somebody gets, the more frequently you can like kind of interchange it because they adapt to things quickly. So like, if unless they haven't done it before, like I'm sure like a Phil Heath or somebody, so I'm going to get, into more powerlifting type of training. He could probably grow off that for a while because he's not like a guy that, I start off as a powerlifter, then, realize I had like a lot of muscle I cut down or something. He's more of like a pure bodybuilder. So he can get a lot out of it. You know what I mean? So like there's that part of it too, where say with powerlifting, but if someone does this, like say they do it for 12 weeks, they might not be able to keep doing it for like 12 weeks and 12 weeks. Eventually they have to get more back to what they did. But, it just depends on the person, how quick they adapt. But I would say like about 35, a third of it, 40% or so.
Sure. No, that makes sense. I appreciate that. That's helpful for everybody out there. Another one too, and I'm not sure how much this will go off because mine's a little dated. I mean, it's early 2000s kinesiology background.
Right.
With more general population. So I always tried to play with stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do anything different? I'll ask this question kind of two ways, but
Right.
with like tempos and or like a concentric only phase or like eccentric overloads, was that ever part of
For sure.
the approach there? And just curious to hear about that.
Okay, so eccentric overload's got a lot of, I think it's a really good way to build muscle, you know what I mean? But not for too long of a period because you can adapt to it pretty quickly. If you like, say, for example, you use 2 legs, do a leg curl, you let it down with 1 leg at a slower tempo where it's like you're fighting, you'll be really sore in your hamstrings the next day. Do that for 5 weeks, it's not gonna be nothing. You know what I mean? So I think you adapt to it quicker and then you might think, but for bringing up, for like maximizing muscle hypertrophy, that Fred Hatfield, especially is big on eccentrics, is I think the key where people get that wrong is you're not, so say for a 5-second tempo on the negative, on the eccentric, you're not really overloading that. So if you say you do like 150-pound dumbbells on bench press, well, then you'll say go to 140s and you're doing 5 seconds on the way down. You can eccentrically lift much more than you can concentrically.
Right.
So that's not really an overload. It's not necessarily valueless because I think prolonged eccentric is one of the best ways to teach somebody a mind-muscle connection. I just don't think it's like that. If that's great for that, that's great for if you have like a shoulder issue, you need to fill it out or whatever on this lift or any lift. It's just not the true eccentric overload for somebody who's like 100% healthy that's trying to do that. Like it needs to be like you're fighting tooth and nail on the way down. So like that's why like the 2 up, 1 down lifts, you like lift 2 leg curls and let it down with 1 leg.
Yeah.
Fight on the way down. It's not like you can't carry on a conversation. You can't take a phone call. You can't talk to anybody. It's going to be a real fight. And every ounce of being has to be concentrated on that fight if you want a really eccentric overload.
And is there anything that when you're seeing the results from that eccentric overload, in that short period of time, say if it's 2 to 4 weeks before they adapt, anything that pops out in your mind with your expertise that, hey, this is what's happening, of why that happens? I mean, like I said, I've heard some outdated stuff from 20 years ago, but just curious to what's out there now.
I think there's even go. So the more, this is kind of sucks, and it's just life, but the more genetically you are set up to build muscle, usually the better you do with eccentrics. So that's kind of like another thing is like they seem to like really cause hypertrophy, the fast twitch fibers. So if you're somebody who can easily activate the fast twitch fibers, a fast gainer, quote unquote, you probably get more out of it than if somebody's a slow gainer and has no mind muscle connection. They try to do it in the bench, they might just, even if they do it like, oh, my shoulder hurts, where like the in tune, mesomorph with a ton of fast twitch fibers, like, dude, yeah, I've never felt the deep soreness in my chest. And they're able to target that muscle more effectively. I can't say the exact mechanism of exactly how this happens.
Sure.
I definitely have noticed that like people that are more in genetically set up for bodybuilding and have fast twitch fibers seem to benefit for it. It's like, if you're basically a slower gainer, a lot of what is going to get you better. So here's the thing is like, I think I'm sorry to go off on tangent. It's okay.
No, do your thing. This is your stuff. People don't want to hear me talk.
Okay, cool. All right. So a big misconception is people feel like if they're a slow gainer, like I know there's a lot of literature. I guess literature is a stretch. People writing books. I guess it ain't literature, but like, more geared towards like quote unquote hard gainers. And for a long time, it was like, more of a heavy duty, high intensity type of approach. And you'd have like one set, to whatever, like to failure or near failure kind of thing and move on. That's not the case, because those techniques are actually going to work better with fast gainers, because the thing is, people that are neurally inefficient, they're uncoordinated with their muscles, a weak mind muscle connection, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
They cannot activate the threshold to make the gains. They can't even do it if they want to. So it's silly. They need to do more. They can do more volume. They can do more, more intensity, not so much intensity, and more frequently, because they don't know how to they can't overtrain themselves very easily. Like, if you're a grown man and you're telling me, you weigh 200 pounds, you deadlift 300 pounds, and you're saying you're essentially fatigued from, deadlifting 225 for a bunch of singles. I mean, you probably just heard something on the internet and made a self-fulfilling prophecy, because it's not true. So a lot of the people that advocate that, the people they advocated it to, they're not even capable of reaching that stimulation threshold, because you're doing like hardly any volume. It better damn well be pretty intense. But the problem is, this dude can't even get intense if he wants to, because of the activation. Now, it's not like a life sentence. Maybe as time goes on and training correctly gets, more neurally efficient, it's a different ballgame.
Yeah, I just and again, it's a more outdated for me, but working agonist and antagonist muscles to open up like a weak point. And I know some things I've done in the past was, amongst other things, but if I use like a band for an even eccentric overload, like something like a lateral raise on a smaller muscle, group of muscle fibers, try to get all those motor units and neurons to fire more, because I could just feel I can take these dumbbells and hold and all this, but there's other things overpowering it, that I couldn't get as good of a recruitment. So I was just always curious to people like yourself that are just so far into this, more than myself. And that was, like I said, early 2000s kind of stuff that I picked up through my education and some of the training I was doing. But so no, that's a good point. And kind of transitioning from that, I know you have a lot of different educational resources, books and things you put out there. What are some of your recent content or recent books that you put out, and what was the focus?
The most recent one's one on mindset, and so that's like different kind of techniques instead of like, I guess like breathing techniques, things like that kind of stuff. Visual, mental movies, things of that nature is the most recent one.
Okay, yeah, I think I have it here.
And I'd say right before that, and a number of different ones. I have to think about what they all are, because I did because over like when COVID, it was shut down. That one right there.
Okay.
When COVID, me and my best friend and I, we just started, like, when COVID shut things down. We just started pumping out books all the time, because it was just like, I mean, it was a productive use of time. I think COVID, basically, from a mindset standpoint, like, it's amazing how many people would say they'll do this, that, and the other, and they had all this free time in COVID, and they just got, out of shape and didn't do anything. Like, see all these different books, man, it was a product of COVID.
And was there anything with the mindset that, a lot of good came out of that too, right? So a lot of downs, but you made the best.
I mean, I think a lot of it depends on, how you use the time. I mean, obviously, if you lost a loved one or something, there's no replacing that. But, like,
right.
I mean, didn't like liquor sales go up like 30-40%?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I was one that was fortunate of, I think, over 300 employees in one of the locations I was based out of. I was the only one that wasn't furloughed. And then I ended up doing a lot of consulting, because I thought I was going to get cut at any time. So I was very fortunate from that standpoint, where I worked 7 days a week, morning, 2 jobs, full time pretty much, but was able to learn a lot about some other industries while I was like consulting. So, like you said, just kind of, I can sit at home and, booze it up or dig into this stuff
for sure,
and learn some more. So it was a great experience. It got me into I ran a medical management company, so it kind of got me into the medical side of things a lot more, and had time to nerd out on all that. And so that was fun.
Awesome.
So I can't complain there. But is there anything, though, as I'm looking at your books, anything that comes to mind to transition to your content on, like, the mindset, or what have you seen that you've been successful with athletes and kind of coaching them on the mindset to lifting or training?
I mean, so all sorts of things. Anything from like smaller things. I mean, I think that the basis of this all with most people is going to come down to like, besides even using the like, so you showed that mindset one recently. The one I would say would be a really good one for people is called Grounded in Gratitude. And that one kind of covers, because a lot of the stuff's real basic, like self-talk and things like that. You know, if you tell yourself, you know, what, like I wouldn't say, you know, I'm sick. To me, that's taking ownership over being sick. I'd say, you know, I don't remember what time I actually was, you know, but it was saying like, if I was, I would say, you know, I'm dealing with an illness right now. You know, I don't take out my trash, I take out the trash kind of thing. And I think people, if they kind of like really examine the internal dialogue they have with themselves and clean that up, you can do a lot of other things with it.
It's interesting you say that, because there's another one. It was more of a business motivation book, but he talked about I get to versus I have to. Like, oh, I have to go.
It's exactly self-talk.
Yep. Like I get to go pick up my daughter from school, not I have to go. You know, just a different like framing, and it you know, seems to have a pretty big impact there. So
actually, it was strange. He may have died from COVID, to be honest. Because right when I trained with this, hypnotist, like about 2013 for the first time. A kid I trained was a kicker at a D1 kicker.
Okay.
He had, I mean, he had some pretty bad luck before we started working together. I mean, always hurt. And like, you know, just, you know, things just never seem to go his way, to put, you know, if he had any luck at all, it'd be bad luck kind of thing. And anyways, his mom told me she got him a session with this, she called him a mental coach. I think she thought, I think hypnosis is weird or something. So I'm like, who is this guy? And gave me the website. So I got some sessions with him, and dude, the first time I went in there, I got hypnotized. I mean, it was crazy. Like how, we were like talking about, Amazon getting Jailhouse Strong to be a #1 seller, and it wasn't close. Then I remember I got in the car, looked on my cell phone on the internet, and sure enough, it said #1. It was kind of creepy.
Wow.
And so anyways, this dude, like, I trained on and off with him for years. And he moved out like somewhere like out basically by Arkansas. So it's about 3 hours from here. And we were gonna, so I was training, so I started training on Skype about once a week for about a year. And I was gonna actually go out to this area he was in and train with him for like 8 hours a day for about, you know, because I think he did like professional courses and all this. But this guy said I can train with him like 8-10 hours a day, and we'll just do like, we'll crush it and maybe do it again if we need to. Just I didn't no interest in. I'm actually certified in hypnotizing people. I'm not trying to do that. I just wanted to have the knowledge more, kind of people. And so I called out there, and some guy like picked up the phone. I guess it was like his grandson or something. I don't know. And was like crying. And I'm like, what's happening? He's like, I don't want to tell you this, but Will's dead. So I don't know how old he was, because he wouldn't really train or anything. He looked pretty old. I mean, I would put him like at least well into his 70s, but he just I learned so much from this guy about like, but it all came down to initially was like self-talk of like you just said, of like, I get to, I have to, like, you know, little affirmations. Like one of the guy that broke my record of the 600, the one we came up with for him was, I give myself permission to bench press 600 pounds, because you think about it, your whole life, always asking authority figures like your parents, whoever, for permission to do something. And so at some point you just got to give yourself permission to be great or not. And it worked. He gave himself permission, you know, to deadlift, you know, to bench press 600, or excuse me, to deadlift 900 pounds. That was an American record. Then for another guy, then the one for the 600 pound bench press was, as I closed the It was as I closed the door to 500 pounds, I opened my doors to 600-pound bench press, meaning as I closed the doors, depersonalizing it, I opened my doors, personalizing it. So that's why that Grounding Gratitude book is so good, because there's a whole chapter on self-talk. And that, if you had like one takeaway, that would be, like people have like the worst self-talk. They think it's cool to make jokes about themselves. And it's just becoming like, a self-fulfilling prophecy, because your subconscious mind. So here's where I'm not sure about. I'm not sure if there's some kind of magnetic force of law of attraction in the universe, or if it's just like, if you think like, the old thing is like, what not to think about, the pink elephant, and you think about the pink elephant kind of thing.
Sure.
You say, man, I really like want a certain car or something. I guarantee you're going to start seeing that car all the time.
Right.
I don't know if you're attracting it to yourself. I think it's just because now you're aware of it,
Yeah.
And that can be a good or a bad thing,
No, I think that's really a great statement. So, just as you said, close the doors and open my doors, so it's like, it's another way of framing it for people, and it makes it a little more obtainable, or more, less so kind of like you're trapped. Because that's one thing. I have young daughters. One thing I focus on, probably too much, but gosh, what was the guy's name that was the Celtics coach? Boston Celtics head coach, won the championship. It'll come to me after, of course. Anyways, house burned down, and there's this whole story about, he was just all over his kids about like, we will not be victims. Like, this did not happen to us. Like, we are going to do this. Like, just like got right into that mode. And it's an extreme example, but the point is, like, whenever one of my daughters even says, well, Bray made me do this, I'm like, no, you're not a victim. Like, you're accountable for your, reword it. Like, you decided to do this, and now here's the consequence. But it's not, someone didn't make you do it, or, I got a bad this or that because of this person. Like, we're not going to get that thinking going in your guys' heads. Because it was
even what you guys do with bodybuilding. Do you want to be not fat or get lean? Do you want to be not weak or get strong? Because your mind hears those words. Your subconscious mind is like your personal assistant, but it just does what it's told, and it doesn't want its, it's like, the thing is, your subconscious mind is your personal assistant. Your personal assistant does what the boss tells it, but your personal assistant doesn't have a sense of humor. It doesn't, it just takes things at face value. So it hears, I don't want to be fat. It hears fat.
Right.
Versus I want to be lean. It hears that word, so you can like, it's, it's not like if you say, I give myself permission to, not smoke cigarettes. It'd be more, I give myself permission to breathe freely, because that's going to be the consequence of quitting cigarettes. I shouldn't say quitting. Quitting's bad. There's an example right there. You don't quit cigarettes, you stop smoking them. It's not bad to stop a bad thing, but quitting in your mind is a bad thing. It should be. So then it's, I'm quitting this. Well, no, you're not. You're just thinking about it all the time. So I choose to breathe freely. I give myself permission to breathe freely.
Yeah. No, it's interesting stuff. I mean, I know from sleep, I had some assistance with that, just how to like unwind it, call it counseling or meditation or whatever. It wasn't like the, what you would think it is, but and I did once, I don't know if you ever seen the show Billionaires. So it was like on, I think it was on HBO or Showtime, but they actually they called it like a mind coach, that the traders would come in and she would reframe stuff for them. They'd go out and they were, it was billions. So they were talking about like these massive like hedge funds these guys are running.
Right.
And I just found that interesting, because one of the places I worked at years ago they did that, and a lot of people didn't take advantage of them. Like, hell yeah, like let me get in there, because like performing in business, just with family, and then training, like flush all this out, like and then let's go. Once I'm out of there, leave it all in the room. And then
sleeping, that's kind of how I rehooked up with Will. So initially it was that goal setting stuff where I told you about the books and all that. Then it took about 2 years off, and I was having all sorts of issues with insomnia. I was dealing with like insomnia basically. And what happened was I went to, like a doctor, he can give you like, Ambien or something that kind of works at first, but then all of a sudden, like, it doesn't really work anymore. Then like one night, like literally like my wife found me in the closet, like eating raw potatoes and drinking beer, like twisting off caps that like we're supposed, and just sitting there just pounding beer, eating raw potatoes. And this is not a joke. It's not like
I was hooked on Ambien for quite a few years. So totally no.
Good snacks. It wasn't like, oh, I found like, great. It was disgusting.
Yeah.
That's no good, right? And then tried other things, didn't work. Then like, so I could, drink a few beers and go to sleep. That's not really a way to solve this. It's like one time, fine. But like, if you do that every night, you'd be an alcoholic, right? So that's not good. So I went to a guy you said like a meditation kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy didn't really offer a lot of good tips, but he did, at least the thing he did do is he made me feel like it was solvable, even though he didn't give me the tools to solve it. And I haven't found them myself yet. Go with Will, and he's like, talking about, I basically, I give myself permission to sleep kind of thing.
Mm.
And I'm falling asleep on the damn hypnosis, let alone that night. It wasn't like, oh yeah, well, all of a sudden, like, it wasn't like all of a sudden that like, I slept 2 hours and then got to 2 hours and 15 minutes. I'm talking like sleepless nights. It was like 8 hours. I remember I woke up in the morning and I looked outside and it was light. I'm like, dude, I must have slept like 5 or 6 in the morning because it was like 8 a.m. and I went to sleep at like, 8 p.m. the night before kind of thing. And I didn't slept over a couple hours in a year or something. And it was from that hypnosis.
Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. No, and we'll definitely put a lot of this in the notes and things for people out there. There's a ton of just great content here. I did want to just ask you kind of high level about a few things.
Sure.
I see here like Powerbuilding cluster sets.
Mm.
Just for those that maybe out there don't know what it means or the general principle of that, can you kind of explain a little bit about cluster sets?
Cluster sets are basically, instead of like your traditional, it's basically a bunch of mini sets with a short rest interval. So for example, a lot of people do it, like have done it for a long time in like Olympic lifting and powerlifting and things like that. But it also has a really good app. Where this is unique is it has good application to bodybuilding too.
Mm.
Because you can get like a lot more volume in if instead of doing like 15 reps, say on a seated row and resting a couple minutes, you go like 5 reps. But then you only rest like 15 seconds and do that over and over again. So when you look at how dense the work is in that amount of time, you would get a lot more work in than if you just did like, 5 sets, 5 sets of whatever. You can get like, it's not volume equated. You get quite a bit more volume in with the cluster sets a lot of times. So, and then the thing I like about it is people can really concentrate on doing good reps. And then for a powerlifting standpoint, it's a good way to do sub-maximal explosive sets. So I'll use it sometimes, like, not too often, is really heavy cluster sets. Like if you look at like Jim Williams, the first guy to bench over 650 back in the day in the 70s, he used like cluster sets. He'd do like 90+% for like 60-second breaks, many singles as you can. That's pretty rough. But then you sometimes do them like, 70%, 8 sets of 3 reps, rest 90 seconds as explosively as possible. So what that does is, for powerlifting, instead of doing, well, why don't you just do, 3 sets of 8? Well, the beauty of 8 sets of 3 is you get 8 first reps. It's a 1-rep sport. So you're able to perfect that technique, build that motor pattern. Then for bodybuilding, the advantage is you can, for one, it's a new stimulus that you may not be used to. 2, you can get more volume in less time. I mean, it's just kind of like the ultimate form of density, I guess, for lack of a better term.
No, that's great. Yeah. I remember doing too, like different variations of it back a long time ago that, it might've been Justin picked him up from you. So
yeah, they're fun, man.
Which when I saw the book, I was like, oh, I remember us doing that. Cause we used to train together. Steve Kuklo, Justin, myself, probably from like 19 to 23, something like that years old. We all of his meatheads. There's actually quite a few pros that came out of this powerhouse in Clinton Township, Michigan. So
where's that at Michigan? Like in relation to like Detroit or somewhere? I don't know Michigan.
Yeah, it's on the east side of Detroit, about 20 minutes or so east of Detroit.
Okay.
So yeah, yep. And we were at a world gym that was about a mile or 2 away from that, and then switched over there. And
I've only met Steve lives within an hour of me. I've only met him. I talked to him for a long time though. When I did meet him at the randomly at the Corpus Christi airport one time. Yeah, he seems like a solid guy. I don't really know him that well.
Yeah, I didn't see him for a long time. I actually one time when I was at another completely different role, whatever I was doing, I walked in a break room, and this is like back when he first really made it in bodybuilding. Everyone's like, said his name. Like, I think I know that guy, because I just lost contact for a while and just, kids and life and whatever.
Right.
And I looked down and he was on the cover of the magazine. I'm like, oh, cool. Good for him. So everyone's like, and I'm like, now I'm the old guy name dropping so that I know Steve Kuklo,
Dude, he's been around for a while because I saw him. I don't know what his status was or anything, but I did see him at Metroflex. And this was like 2006 or 7, maybe.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, I didn't really know who he was at that point as much. I just kind of put 2 and 2 together with Justin. I kind of figured it out. And I was wondering before I realized who it was, this could be like another one of these bodybuilders comes to the Metroflex, for a photo shoot, and they hold up 405 on the incline, but don't actually lift it and that kind of crap. And he was in there pounding it hard, dude. It was like 110 degrees and he was rolling.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe it. One other question I have too, and this might be out there, so if I missed it in my notes, apologize, but I am just curious. Maybe there's others out there listening that are curious. Jailhouse Strong. Where did that name come from? Just curious.
So that name came from basically a lot of people that are influencing us had been to jail. So there's a lot of good techniques picked up that gym I had mentioned.
Yeah.
A lot of barbell movements, high volume body weight training kind of like meshed together coherently. So that, but then also the idea was to do a book on that, but then it became more of a philosophy of how to free yourself from whatever form of self-imprisonment you are. Because most people that read it are not, there are a lot of people who read it in jail, but most people are free. So what's holding you back? Is it whatever, it could be anything, just lack of, it could be substance abuse. It could be, a job. It could be how do you free, what form of imprisonment are you in? How do you free yourself?
Yeah.
And one of the best avenues to do that is through physical training. Because I think a lot of times if you're not training right or training at all, you start getting on a good routine. The physical, the mental, the spiritual are all tied in together.
Yep.
So a lot of times when you improve one of those, the rest are improved. So I think people think it's always gonna be some kind of crazy mindset transformation or religious experience, but a lot of times the opposite's the getting, trust me, I'm not somebody that's in favor of coddling criminals at all. At all. But I do think there's some merit when you you can change people for the positive.
Yeah.
When they have a way to physically train. Because if nothing, so there's a couple ways to look at it. One, if it's something you love to do, even if you're not becoming a better person because of it, you can hold that over somebody's head. Hey, I'm going to take this away from you. That's good. 2, a lot of times I think when you get the physical right, the mental and the spiritual are going to follow after, because it's just, you become a more disciplined, productive person.
Yeah.
It leads in. So it's basically to break free of what's ever imprisoning you.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. Yeah. I'm going to have to grab a copy of that. Cause my brother, actually, I think he has about 2 years left, but about 8 or 9 years ago, and he'd be the first one to tell you that he should have been in there for 7 other reasons, just kind of, drugs and went down that path outside of when he was clean. Just amazing guy, did a lot for the community, started businesses, just completely different people. Anyways, he's in a great spot now, and he would have died if he didn't get arrested. He would tell you that. And I could see it. It's probably 60 pounds later when he got picked up, but he always texts me his workouts and what he's doing. He's always freaking out about not having enough equipment. And we're like, hey, I just tell him kind of similar to what you just said. You got, a lot of the good techniques and things were actually started in there, or you can get some
maximize what you have.
Yep. And just get creative. So he's always getting creative and doing stuff. And as you said, I definitely think that keeps him in check.
Basically, it's always maximize. That's the other thing. It's doing the best you can with what you
have.
Philosophy. And I'll tell you what, doing, like 1,000 push-ups a day properly, you can get a lot out of that if you can get up to that point. That, it's going to be a lot better than a half-assed, 24-hour fitness chest workout. Now, obviously, if you have access to weights, it's like you want to take advantage of the access. But, I say you don't, anything outside your body, that's another Jailhouse Strong principles. Anything outside of your body weight is a luxury. So you can get strong and in shape with just this. So you don't need anything else. Now, it is doing the best you can with what you got. And if you got the best, you want to use the best. I mean,
yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It is funny. Just one last comment on that, and then I know we're coming up on time, so I want to be respectful of your time here. But when I was just blown away with Steve Goggins was talking about, like, he built something in his front yard, like his own bench, like just put stuff together and,
awesome.
grabbed a pipe and whatever. And it's just like, here's one of the strongest people, breaking records, whatever. And like, I just made it a point when we were talking to him, for everyone out there who felt like they needed the best of the best gym or whatever. So he's got to start, just make the best what you have. And then, yeah, eventually, he's in, using other gym, equipment, stuff like that, but he's got started.
Yeah, no, definitely. I had the Sears weights that we got at a garage sale, but I never got to the point of, that point, but
yeah, you had the cement ones.
Yeah, exactly. I never had to get like sticks in the backyard and throw buckets on them. I may have done that before, but never had to actually build anything.
Yeah, that's what he was doing. Yeah, and I will say I was very fortunate. My dad was a tool and die maker, so definitely the budget was tight, and all three boys around 6'3", 230 as in ninth grade. So we were some big kids, and but he ponied up and got us like a nice, I still have it in my basement actually, commercial weight set. So it was like,
I would just go also where my parents lived. We had access to a college near us.
Yeah.
And like in junior high and stuff, it's kind of like, what are you doing here? Then like, I was benching like, 245 pounds in junior high. So once I can go down there and like throw down with the college guys, okay, come back anytime kind of thing. So you kind of like, lifting was different back then. And now people always talk about community and stuff. There was no community. There was a pecking order, and you had to earn your way into it. You had to earn your respect. But
exactly.
But the thing that was nice about it is once you got it, it really meant something. It was like nobody felt like they had to be inclusive. Like it was like, oh, that asshole that sneers at everybody like said hi to me and asked me for a spot. Like,
yeah,
there was no better compliment.
Yeah, I think I'm in now.
Yeah, exactly, for real.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time, Josh, for coming on. We usually do, if you have 2 or 3 more minutes here, we do a round called Shoot, Move, Communicate. So it's just kind of a rapid fire questions that I'll shoot your way. And then we'll make sure to get all the.
Is this live on YouTube? It's not put up later?
Yeah, we'll be put it up later. Yeah. So I'm not streaming at the moment, but
okay.
Need to do that soon, though. Need to get moving on that.
So you're just live, you're just going for it, or somebody else?
So this will be on our first Detachment YouTube.
No, I get that. I'm saying, are you asking me the questions or people?
Yeah, I'm going to ask you the questions.
Okay, go. Yeah, that's fine.
Yep. All right. So first one is within your own training, what accomplishment has made you the most proud? Are you most proud of?
My 810 deadlift, because mostly my 600-pound bench press. But I feel like I'm not built to deadlift. My body's not genetically set up for it. I had one top powerlifter. I'm not trying to say I told you so. So I don't even mention name, but said it would be a miracle if I were deadlifted 700, and I did 810 raw.
Nice. So. Awesome. What accomplishment within your training, if you had to pick one, what would made you most proud?
Like a training kind of lift or something?
Training a client or a success story or something like that.
Man, there are so many that I could go different. That's the thing I like about the uniqueness of like my clients.
Yeah.
So you say, Julius Maddox, benching at 782, most ever, or another guy like Tom Havlin, like probably the greatest all around kind of like tactical athlete that can do anything with strength. I mean, so there's so many different directions we can take it out. And I feel like not only offending them, but even myself, because I think about it later, I'm like, no, this person.
Yeah. Well, if we take Julius, like, what is there something that stuck out to you about that experience? That really stuck out to you? That is an accomplishment?
I would say it's just the whole thing of watching him progress, because I feel like, it's somebody that was put on the earth for this purpose that's actually fulfilling it. Like, doing what he's supposed to do, and just, watching that grow and stuff. And it's with Julius, it hasn't been like, it's not like all of a sudden, he came out of nowhere and like, he's benching 315, and all of a sudden, like, I mean, it's been a steady progression the whole way, and it's hard work. It's been like that.
Good deal. Hey, Mr. Harris is back. Look at that. You missed a lot of good stuff, buddy.
Oh man, I know this. It sucks because this is like one of the ones I really wanted to be on. I just traveled about 300 miles across the worst internet connection area of mid-Michigan, BFE there is.
Well, I'll wrap up my questions, and we'll kick it over to you so you can get it. Maybe Josh will let you squeeze in a couple more. But all right. So one word to describe like your training philosophy, what would it be if you had to pick one word?
Efficient.
Right. One word to if you had to encourage an up and coming strength athlete, what would one word be that you would?
Mindset.
And then what's
Okay.
that?
I guess mindset's one word, right?
There you go. Yeah, that works. One word to describe your ideal client, what would that be?
Willing.
All right, next question. If you had to miss one, what would it be? A meal, a night of sleep, or a training session?
Meal.
And then with regards to your educational stuff, training philosophy, your personal training, is there one parallel between everything that you've done that you feel like has led to your success?
I think one gift I have a good bullshit detector.
There you go. Good deal. All right. Last one is we like to say our kind of mantra at First Detachment is like, we're all in. And so the question is, what is that thing that you're all in on right now that you're just, passionate about? It's either current or in the near future for you. What excites you?
Honestly, it's taking my clients to the next level. So there's not like a particular booker. I've got to figure out what I'm going to do with that next, but all that stuff is written off of or made off of like what's really happening. So that's like the actual base level of what, influences any kind of product or content.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. That's awesome. I appreciate you going through everything. And like I said, we'll be able to make sure for everybody out there, like, subscribe, put comments in the comment section if we can answer questions for you for the audience out there, or if we can shoot Josh a note. But then we'll make sure that they can find you. What are some of the best places they can find you? I know Jailhouse Strong on Instagram.
Yep.
Waffle House.
Yeah, Waffle House.
JoshStrength.com.
JoshStrength.com.
Be the best two ways.
All right, good deal. Mr. Harris, any closing thoughts or questions or anything?
Oh,
you may have missed one or
what
two.
I just went through.
I missed one or two.
I got a diabetic emergency. I just went through a pouring, freezing rainstorm in the middle of. I don't have anything other than
that. Things going well.
All right. Well, for everybody out there, thanks again, and have a good night.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Right.
I'm not going to miss that meal. It's about to be ready. So
there you go.
Yeah.